Welcome to Digital Democracy on Tap. I'm Sarah Jane Crespo. The economic recovery of small businesses is top of mind for many Americans in this semi-post-COVID period. Some small business owners say they're in recovery mode, and many still can't fill open jobs to get back to 100%. Wichita small businesses are no different. We've lost some longtime local shops and restaurants. At the same time, a lot of Wichitans have gotten behind the shop local efforts. We'll get some firsthand accounts of how it's going today from small business owners and the Small Business Administration. Let's meet our panel. We have local business owner Alex Thomas of Kirby's, the Cotillion, and Lava and Tonic Tiki Bar. We also have Darryl Givens, owner of Givens Restoration, an emergency damage repair company. Then we have District Director for the Wichita office of the U.S. Small Business Administration, Wayne Bell. And for some news perspective, KMUW's Director of News and Public Affairs, Tom Shine. Welcome to all of you. Over the next hour, please send us your questions through Facebook, or you can email us at info@kmuw.org. So let's get started. Tom, your segment, The Range, has featured local businesses, oddly enough, starting just as the pandemic hit. What is your sense of the local business landscape right now?
It was odd that we launched just like the week before the pandemic or 2 weeks before the pandemic. I think the local businesses are certainly doing better than a year ago, but I still think that the return and the recovery is uneven. I think would be a fair thing to say. There's probably some businesses and some industries doing better than others. I think all of them are struggling to find employees. Seems to be a common theme that you read and hear about quite a bit. There's supply chain issues at a lot of places as well. So they've got new challenges now. I think customers are ready to come back, but a lot of places aren't ready to do that. And of course, then the big question I think that a lot of businesses are starting to worry about is what if we get another big surge? I know LA County, which I think is the largest county in the country, got away from masks. And now this last week, they put masks back in place, even for vaccinated people, even for when they're indoors, they're required to wear masks indoors again. So I think there's a little bit of nervousness, I think for all of us, but certainly for a business owner, that they're going to have to go back down that road of mask and not mask and enforcing masks again, which was, very difficult for many of them. And so I think that's a big concern too.
Now, Alex, you own a few well-known popular businesses. When the news of COVID-19 hit, what happened for you across those different businesses?
Well, it became readily apparent that I wasn't as diversified as I thought I was, in that I required people to be able to attend my business in person. Mm-hmm. So, the first inklings I had that something serious was going to happen was when they canceled South by Southwest. And that was directly impactful to things that we were doing at the Cotillion. And I remember looking at my GM saying, wow, that's pretty serious. This is potentially going to roll down our way. Now, just like many things in Kansas, whether it be trends or, movements, et cetera, we're often on the latter side of those waves. So we knew that maybe, we had hoped that there might be a solution before it really impacted us. But it was pretty obvious in March, on the day that we were supposed to have an event, and we were loading in equipment for that event, when Sedgwick County shut down gatherings to 250 people at first. And we knew that we had to cancel the date as the artists were rolling in. And really at that point, it was kind of, hey, how do we inform the public what we're going to do? Of course, at my larger event spaces, that was impactful, but at my smaller event spaces, we could still operate, for the time being. But then, of course, the restrictions kept on coming, and then eventually we just shut down. So, it was really a situation of figuring out how are the employees going to survive, and how am I going to pay the bills? How much room do I have to sit out with no revenue? Pretty stressful in the first month, to say the least.
Yeah, I imagine. Did you take different actions for different businesses to kind of weather the pandemic as it continued, or was it pretty much that you just had to do the same things for each one?
No, each had its unique situation, unique mixture. So, for instance, the cotillion, we knew we absolutely could not do anything with the size of what we were doing, the nature of our, secondary and tertiary revenue streams. What we were able to do was to basically, stomp down on expenses and just go into life support mode. With Lucky's every day, which is a bar on at 1217 East Douglas, and Kirby's up by the university. Those were smaller operating spaces, and it was really more about what are the employees going to do, because they really rely on tips and being able to serve. And so we had an opportunity to try to do a few things at Kirby's with live streams for music, and selling merchandise, and that's what it became. That's what it was, and the community really came out and supported things from that aspect. We put out a line of shirts that were going directly to our employees to help them with groceries and before they could get on unemployment. We finally, when Kansas passed the to-go drink situation, we were able to do some to-go drinks. Then with Lava and Tonic, which was our newest business, that started in October of 2019, it had a unique blend of very craft cocktails and cocktails that you might not be able to just make at home or go down and purchase from a store. So, through the to-go program and our limited seating when we were opening back up, we were able to kind of sustain through the pandemic fairly decently. So, it was interesting to see from situation to situation how it affected each business, and we just had to be kind of nimble and really react quickly whenever there was an opportunity to be had. We had to adapt and for instance, in the first PPP round, we had payroll to pay, but not really work to do since we couldn't be open. So, we did a lot of cleaning. We were able to pay employees to, and paid them a higher COVID rate for working, so that we could, do some cleanup and maintenance of the facilities, and we're able to kind of survive that way.
You made some lemonade, sounds like.
Right.
So, Darryl, I'd like to come to you next and just kind of ask how quickly you were able to adjust your services to include COVID cleaning. First, if you want to describe your business a little bit, and explain how you sort of punted when the pandemic hit you.
Okay, well, we're in the service business, and we're a disaster restoration service, and it kind of falls into the construction industry to a degree. We were considered, what they considered essential business. So we didn't get shuttered. We never stopped. There was a little bit of a pause, and that was mostly from customer reactions to this pandemic and what it meant, and can they get it from our employees, and that we had to deal with that safety issues, the mask and things. There was a different approach to going in. When we do mold remediation, we wear a mask anyway. But some of the other things we don't wear a mask. We work with a lot of insurance companies, and they require, from the moment you're at the door, you wear a mask. So it was somewhat of an adjustment, but a lot when people were home, we got more calls. We were busier during that time. It actually, you mentioned COVID cleaning. We didn't do COVID cleaning initially, but we got a call and asked us if we would do it. My competitors were all doing it. It was a new service. So it was the lemonade you just mentioned. I mean, it was an opportunity to provide services similar to what we were already doing. So we did that. PPP definitely helped. I don't know that at the time that we requested it, that it was necessary, but it seemed, to have these peaks and valleys where, depending on what was going on in the news, we could come to a halt because of what people were concerned about. And then all of a sudden we have more work than we could handle. So it was, in one way, a huge learning cycle for us. We never changed dramatically anything that we actually did other than safety issues. We were explaining more. We often do work while clients are out of the home. They were always home. I mean, they were always available. The scheduling, a lot easier because clients were always accessible. So for our industry, we were only negatively affected just by the process and the fear and the concern, the delays. That's on the customer side. Once the stimulus money went out, the employee issues began because I had employees that had more sick days. They were less available, not available, weren't coming back. I mean, we had to deal with that issue ongoing because of the funds that were being distributed and so our workforce is in that arena, so we had to deal with that quite often.
Thank you, Darryl. I want to talk a little bit more about the workforce issues that we've been seeing and what is kind of coming along here now in the place that we've come to. But first, I want to come to you, Wayne, and just kind of ask, what was the SBA's role in distributing the PPP loans and other economic support? Kind of how was the organization involved in the community?
Thank you, SJ. Well, I believe I'm going to assume everyone is familiar with the Small Business Administration. We're a federal agency. We were established in 1953 to help and support entrepreneurs and to support small business owners in their plans for their business. And so our role in the pandemic, we were the federal agency really responsible for the deployment of these resources that were made available by way of the stimulus packages that were enacted as a direct result of COVID-19. So you had you've heard already the business owners mention the Paycheck Protection Program. We didn't make those loans directly from the SBA, but we worked very closely with lenders. Virtually every lender, every commercial lender had access to the Paycheck Protection Program. And so business owners, nonprofit organizations, ag entities, just a number of eligible entities, if you will, were able to access funds, all intended to pay their employees and to keep employees, working through those first few months of the pandemic. I think when the Paycheck Protection Program was initially rolled out, none of us could have predicted how long this was going to go. I think the initial, there was an assumption that we would probably be by this maybe in 6 months or so. And unfortunately, it went more like, 16 months, went quite a ways. So in our role with the SBA, obviously we were working feverishly with the public, business owners, all of the above, who had questions about how to access the Paycheck Protection Program, also how to access other tools that were rolled out, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan or EIDL loans, and then there were some grants associated with the EIDL loan program. So we were basically in a rapid, all hands on deck mode. The phones were, obviously ringing, 24 hours, and we were working with a number of stakeholders and partners to, just spread the word of our resources and how they could utilize and how they can access how the public could access these resources made available through, I'm forgetting the name of the very first stimulus package. Perhaps Tom can help me there, but the most recent packages, the most recent one is the American Rescue Plan Act. And then just before that was the Economic Aid Act, and the initial program that rolled out the Paycheck Protection Program and these other tools. It just slips my mind at the moment. But anyway, these federal resources, and we were front and center in the deployment and trying to, just make sure that everyone that could access these programs were able to do so.
I'm curious, from hearing Alex speak and then from hearing Darryl speak, I think there's an impression that most businesses were adversely affected by the pandemic, but that there were these few lucky ones that kind of did pretty well or even better than normally that they would during the pandemic. Is that an accurate kind of idea of how businesses have been affected? And Wayne or Tom, I don't know. Yeah, if you.
Yeah, I would say, I'll just jump in really quickly. Yes, what we observed, if there were companies such as Darryl's that were performing services that perhaps were being contracted either at the federal level, by federal agencies or by local government, those kinds of services continue. Those kinds of contracts, those things continue. But certainly the majority of industries, businesses, owners such as we heard from Alex, anyone that owned a venue or any type of establishment that relied on customers going into that establishment was dramatically impacted. And that was just across the board. It was more widespread. And I would say virtually every entity we could think of was affected. But there were some sectors such as these essential services or government. There were some sectors that continued and actually did better, during that time frame. But very few. I'll pause there to allow Tom to comment.
And I think you're right, when I think it was a pretty small number. And it's funny, Darryl, you mentioned about people being home. We interviewed a guy who ran a landscaping company. Everybody was home, started looking around the yard, kind of thinking, I really need some yard work. And these guys, they couldn't keep up. They were so busy. Then I think the pool guys, people said, well, since we can't go out, why don't we just make our home as nice as we can? And remodeling, pools, garage work, all kinds of stuff. They were so busy because people were home and noticed all these things. But I like Wayne said, I think it was a pretty small number of people who benefited from that, and the vast majority of companies really got hurt.
Thank you. So recently, KMUW's Torrin Anderson spoke with the artistic director of Music Theater Wichita, Brian Markham, about some health and safety measures that will continue for their audiences. Let's listen.
With more families expected, maintaining social distancing is necessary.
We feel like we'll have lots of children coming to see it. So they're not vaccinated. So we just want to make sure that we can stay safe. And we're going to ask people to still wear their masks indoors. And we'll put a seat in between every group, every family group or every group that comes together. And then in the loge here, we will separate every aisle. Every other aisle won't be used.
Music Theater will have 2 more shows this year. It's extending its season into November, and Markham says he hopes by then, audiences will see a much more familiar return of Music Theater Wichita.
So I think that clip is interesting, and I want to ask you, Alex, if there are some COVID business adjustments that you will continue to implement even after the pandemic is over, that this is just sort of brought to light.
It at the smaller locations, no. I don't think we are distancing. We are going with what the county says. I think the patrons are comfortable. We're all all 21 and up, and so no. We're at the smaller venues. At the cotillion level, we have to be sensitive to what tours are asking us to do. Tours are coming in from multiple locations that have multiple guidelines. And we've had both a scenario of which the tour may not care about, COVID protocol, or the tour may insist that no matter what the local health department says is okay, that they would like to enforce a certain COVID protocol themselves. So, and that happened early on. So there are some tours asking for venues to enforce mask rules, for instance, even if your local municipality is not requiring that. So, I think there were some creative things that were thought about to be able to gather due to COVID in a 6 feet separation or limited occupancy sense. I think it required some more focus on potential outdoor facilities. And I think in general, as the weather permits, people would prefer to be outside currently. But in terms of my business, what I'm seeing is that people want to return to normal. I mean, I think, or at least what their normal was pre-COVID. And with the vaccines that are out, I think there's a certain comfort level of people that are eligible for those, that either they're going to get the vaccine or roll the dice not getting the vaccine, but they want to return to their lives as normal. So, and much, I'd like to just add that while yes, my businesses were gravely affected by the 16 month shutdown and limitations, but we definitely have seen a resurgence as things have opened up, almost like a roaring 20s in terms of what people want to do and people want to get out and people want to interact. I mean, being shut down for so long and focusing on your home or doing some outdoors things, outdoorsy things, and are all great. But I think at the end of the day, most people are pretty social animals and they want to interact with people. And so that's what I've seen as in terms of resurgence of business. But I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if a business could kind of hang in there through all of those months of shutdown, they're gonna kind of recoup or benefit now that things are opening back up. Sounds like. Darryl, how about you? Will there be any adjustments that will continue for your business beyond the pandemic, or were there any kind of other ways that other new things that you've learned or different ways you've learned to do things?
I think safety-wise, we'll continue those processes, procedures. I think during this time, we tended to use, social media, texting, less in-person contact that people would typically demand, or they used to demand, come out and see me. Now it's like, tell me all you can over the phone, text me. We'll continue those. That was a lot, a lot more efficient. And I think people preferred it, during the pandemic. And I think society is more accustomed to it now, and it's more beneficial to our organization as well. So I think that part will probably continue. Most of our other services, it's standard procedure, standard protocol, and we'll continue the way we've always done things. But we have to pay attention to what the conversation is nationally regarding the pandemic and this disease, and how just be aware of how people are responding to it, how they're reacting to it, just to ensure that we're approaching our clients in a way that they feel safe and they're comfortable.
Thank you. I'd like to go back to the idea of workforce challenges. And I'd really be curious for all of you to weigh in on this, but I know that Alex, we don't have much time left with you. I want to go to Wayne first for sort of a big picture, but maybe then we'll go to Alex and then you can head to your next thing, Alex, and then we'll kind of go around. But Wayne, would you kind of give us a glimpse of what it has been like citywide for businesses coping with the workforce issues that the pandemic has brought on?
Thank you, SJ. I think what we've heard from Alex and Darryl both kind of gives us a little bit of insight. I think all of us will be challenged to now moving forward. Businesses are going to have to balance a bit of this new virtual integration into how they operate, their processes, perhaps how they communicate with customers, probably more integration if there wasn't already before, more integration of using apps, to order and pay for things and to do business in advance, of actually being at a, at a venue or appearing at a place. So I think this integration of more virtual work for those tasks and those jobs that will allow it, even in the federal space, we're grappling with how do we go back, do we need the footprint that we have? Should we go to smaller spaces and maybe more access points, that kind of thing. So I think, from a big perspective, all of us are going to have to continue to navigate really a new way of operating. And I'll stop there and allow Alex to chime in.
Before we do that, you're making me curious here. If you're talking about these new flexibilities, are employees asking for this flexibility now, or is this sort of something that's just expected that we'll need?
Yeah, I think it's a bit, I think it's the latter. I think it's more now, perhaps more of an expectation. If there were industries or sectors that were hesitant to be virtual or to use virtual work or remote work, the pandemic has certainly forced that issue and really challenged our thinking. I think collectively, people have demonstrated you can be efficient, you can be productive, and you don't have to necessarily be in a place from 8 to 5, that sort of thing. But that's certainly a challenge for small business owners because not all businesses will allow, not all business models are situated where their teams can work remote. Certainly can't work remote, full time. You think about Alex and operating venues, they need their teams there as people are coming into their spaces and they're dealing with customers. They've got to have their people there to do that. Darryl, in his services that he's going out, he's got to have someone actually physically doing the work, at a particular facility. So there's some industries that will be challenged, with this idea of remote work, but there are many others, such as in federal government, where we're delivering services. Certainly, we're looking right now. All agencies, by the way, are actually developing their plans for post-COVID. They're developing plans at a high level on how our operations are going to look post-COVID, and really, the primary issue is how do we maintain a good percentage of remote work or virtual work.
So now, Alex, obviously the remote and virtual doesn't apply to you as much. What are the workforce challenges that you are facing, and how can you see through those?
Yeah. Virtual is not really a benefit to any situation that I'm in unless, we can just FaceTime while you drink a beer in front of your TV. So we really do rely on our employees and customers to be there and in person. However, I will say that I've heard plenty of issues from my industry compatriots about workforce issues. And while we have had some, I will not say we haven't had, zero. We definitely have had a few issues in restaffing. I have not struggled that much with getting staff to come back or new staff replaced where staff didn't come back. I will say I think there's an expectation and probably a duty on both my part and the employees to, that I had to come back to the table maybe with a little bit more support, whether that be financially through pay increases or some flexibility, in some higher positions on benefits, health insurance, which is hard for a small business to do. However, we have to do it. We have to figure out a way to adapt and a way to, increase, I think a lot of the service industry saw when they went on unemployment that, it is important to claim as much cash as you can to prove, that you are earning a certain amount of money in case that employment is gone and you need to rely on unemployment. So, I think it's a lot of this. It's, I've raised some pay rates across the board. I've, offered some additional benefits to working, and also, just given some more support. And so I haven't had as much of an issue getting essential people back. And they've been excited to come back, and which makes me feel good, makes me feel like I'm doing my job as an employer, that they love their jobs and they wanted them back. So, that's where I sit. Like I said, there is certainly, in general, a few problems, but I can't really state a problem in which I asked an employee to come back and they decided to stay at home rather than come back. I think it's been more, they've got other opportunities, or they're too busy, or they've moved on, they've moved up. They've decided to, what I call, get their, big boy or big girl job, where they're pursuing a career. And I was super happy for them to do so. There was a certain number of my employees that took this opportunity, when I had to lay them off during the pandemic, that took that opportunity to go back to school. And, I think that's great. I think that, there's only so long you can be a bartender or a bar manager. And if, you take that step, I'm completely supportive of that. And there's, someone that's going to want to come in and be a part of these businesses, and that's great. But I have not had a situation which I, had to really ask someone to come back. I've, had plenty of opportunities and resources for people that wanted to work. It's just, there's a lot of those opportunities out there. So people, a lot of live events have started happening again. So, that's about the only workforce, conflict that I've had, is that they're booked at other places when we have, larger events. We're trying to get people in, and there's so many to choose from now. That's more of the situation.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your time.
No problem.
Have a good evening. And
Yeah,
Darryl,
thank you so much.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm sorry I have to leave early, but I've got another panel to be on. So
no
take
worries.
Care.
Good night. Darryl, I want to go to you next. You kind of had a little chuckle when he said raising the pay rate. What has your experience been with the employing enough workers?
It's not significant, but I knew he called it support, but I knew it was about money.
Yeah.
I had an employee's wife called me to tell me that keeping me current on the conversation about wages, and just to give me the hint that everybody's going to be headed upward. Yeah, we've had some of that, and I've lost some people. There were companies that are advertising bonus pay and more pay, better benefits, and things like that we always had to deal with. But seems to be a larger camera on it right now. But I think all of us have dealt with that, or will be dealing with it at some point somehow. And he's right. You just have to get creative. You hope that you've touched your employees in a way that they're committed to, helping the organization as well as themselves, and that they will stay around, stay long term, and help us all move forward. But yeah, I think there's going to be just ways that we'll have to get creative to maintain people, in addition to, but not only financial.
Tom, is it your sense that we haven't really had kind of a workforce, I don't know, an opportunity for workers like this before, or at least in recent memory, that they may have this increased ability to have raises and that sort of thing?
It's funny that, and Darryl can probably speak to this better than me, that Wichita's unemployment rate is actually pretty high. It's much higher than the state's is. But there seems to be a disconnect about the jobs that are available and the people seeking those jobs. The skills don't match up, or they're not interested in that field. So normally when unemployment shrinks and gets tight, then salaries go up because you got to attract those people to your job. But right now the unemployment rate is high, but I think people are still looking for increased salaries, even though there's a large pool of people out of work. So it's kind of a weird kind of a thing going on right now. And of course, there's also the issue nationally about minimum wage and raising the minimum wage, and that whole topic of making a living wage, and that, of course, that impacts the people who are above that, but it's going to probably bump them up too. So it's kind of a funny thing. You would think with the unemployment rate as high as it is that you wouldn't have any trouble finding people, but I think businesses are having trouble finding people. I don't think it's necessarily pay. It's more about jobs and job security and the type of work.
For those just joining us, I'm Sarah Jane Crespo with KMUW, and this is Digital Democracy on Tap. We're talking about Wichita's economy from the local business perspective with local business owners Alex Thomas and Darryl Givens, District Director of Wichita's Small Business Administration Wayne Bell, and Tom Shine, KMUW's Director of News and Public Affairs. You can join the conversation through questions on Facebook, or you can email them to info@kmuw.org. Let's zoom out a little bit and examine Wichita's overall economic health. Tom, at the start of 2021, you spoke with Jeremy Hill from WSU's Center for Economic Development and Business Research. I want to hear more of your thoughts on the other side of this audio clip.
A full recovery from the coronavirus recession across all local industries, such as Wichita, is expected to take years. So we're still, for Wichita, we're still kind of a long slog away, right?
Yeah, for Wichita, Kansas, and even the U.S., I think it will take a while. It just, in our forecast for Wichita, it will take longer because of the global economy has to improve first before demand increases, travel increases, and then that really filters back down to manufacturing. It's any manufacturing town, but particularly Wichita. It's going to be slower to get back up and going than the nation.
So, Tom, with inflation rising, do you think it's going to get worse before it gets better for us? And what else beyond inflation presents the most worrisome challenge to small businesses right now, in your opinion?
Well, I think like Jeremy said in the clip, we're a manufacturing town, and I know everyone when they think manufacturing, I think of Spirit, I think of Textron, the big business, but they support a whole kind of ecosystem of smaller businesses, suppliers, cleaners, all kinds of people who work in smaller businesses that support aviation. So there's a lot of jobs in that sector. And right now, when the economy goes bad, people stop buying airplanes. I mean, that's sort of a bad thing. I grew up in Detroit, which is also a manufacturing city. And the old adage was, when the economy gets a cold, Michigan gets pneumonia. Because people stop buying cars, and we're the same way. We're a manufacturing town. It's going to take a while. I think, I'm knocking on wood here. I think we've bottomed out or are moving back up. Spirit said today at the city council meeting that they expect to be at full employment or almost full employment by 2024. I know that's still 3 years away, but they're working their way up. They're adding 1,000 jobs a year, probably over the next 3.5 years to get back. Textron is trying to hire 1,000 people. They're having 2 job fairs, I think, this month to hire people for certain jobs. So, and again, those jobs will filter down into smaller businesses supported. So I think we're around the right path. I think inflation's always a concern of, if parts get expensive and materials get expensive, that's going to impact things. But to me, it's getting manufacturing built back up. People are traveling again on airplanes. That's good for us because that means airlines will buy airplanes. The 737 MAX, which was really almost as big a problem as the pandemic when that got grounded, that's flying again. People have ordered the 737 MAX, airlines have. So there's a lot of good signs there, but it's and Wayne has been here long enough, and probably Darryl, that after 9/11, when 9/11 happened, the aviation industry really took a shot because nobody was flying, and it took a while, but we did recover. It took 4 years, maybe 3.5, 4 years to recover, and we did recover, and then we were going great, and then 2008 happened, and we weren't doing so great. So it's a cyclical business, and the cycles seem to be getting a little longer. The recovery cycle seems to be getting longer. I think we'll recover. I think 2024 is a place that we'll be at, but that's 3 years from now. If you're running a small machine shop or manufacturing shop, that's a long time to keep it going. So I think we're headed in the right direction, but it's gonna take some time.
Yeah.
Wayne, I'm curious about your thoughts there on just sort of the greatest challenges that our businesses are facing as well.
Well, I think I would echo a few things that Tom just mentioned. The one overarching challenge for all small businesses, or most that we've talked to, has to do with workforce. Either with hiring or retaining their talent, or bringing people back. So no doubt about it, that's been the overarching issue that has been cited by many, many business owners that we've talked to. And Tom touched on something, in our community, we were, if you remember, last quarter of 2019, the 737 MAX had been grounded, and the supply chain that impacted was really, we were already in a crisis locally due to the 737 MAX grounding. In fact, I was a part of a committee here locally that, were meeting, and we were trying to come up with resources and a plan to support that supply chain of affected small businesses. And then we went right into COVID in that first quarter of 2020, and the resources made available by way of the CARES Act. I was trying to remember that earlier, but the resources that came about by way of the CARES Act actually, indirectly also supported, or provided some support, I'll put it that way, provided some support to that affected supply chain of businesses in our community. I do think, the signs that Tom has pointed out, the signs, we've got some indicators that we may really be on a trajectory that is at least 3 years, if not sooner, in terms of that activity coming back, because the 737 MAX grounding, that has gone away. That aircraft was grounded for 20 months, and now through that activity, Spirit, as Tom pointed out, they've announced that they've already, I believe they're calling back like 5,000 employees that were laid off due to a combination of the 737 MAX grounding and COVID. And we've got these other companies such as Textron Aviation that are hiring. So I'm a bit optimistic, and I'm hopeful that we'll see maybe a slightly quicker rebound than anticipated. I mean, we're still talking years, but perhaps we're not talking 3 years. Maybe it's two plus from now. But we've got an incredible community of resources and support, for small businesses that remain very engaged. There's a COVID task force that is actively working right now around the clock, looking for more insight to why this community of eligible workers are not returning. What are the barriers that are keeping people from going back to work? The Workforce Alliance has put out a survey to 42,000 individuals that in the last few years that have received unemployment benefits to try to get some insight to what are those barriers, that are keeping that population from coming back to work. In some cases, it could be childcare, it could be other things, but hopefully we'll get some good insight as a result of that survey. So anyway, there's some positive things, but that overarching issue is certainly being able to hire and being able to scale up as these opportunities come back on board, being able to scale up to, by hiring individuals to support the work that where the opportunities are.
Thank you, Wayne. Darryl, is there an overarching challenge for Givens Restoration right now that is just the most pressing thing that you're facing? And what is that?
I'd have to say it would be the workforce personnel. There's kind of it's an odd position to be in where you have seemingly more opportunity than the pandemic, but fewer resources to accomplish those and take advantage of those opportunities. We're finding ourselves having to push down the calendar projects where, before it was 2 weeks, now it's 4 weeks, it may be 6 weeks. And then you compound, Tom mentioned it earlier, the supply chain. I called today to order some paint from a local distributor, same paint that had been used on this project, and they couldn't get it, wasn't available till next week. Paint, that's never happened as far, from my knowledge, from the prior pandemic, where you could not get these things. We're waiting 6 weeks, 8 weeks on like flooring material that wherever it's coming from, we're seeing changes in suppliers and vendors. There's a lot of movement that's affecting the end product in our service industry and certainly manufacturing the products on the inside. So it tends to be a combination of things that are happening to a lot of small businesses, but workforce is huge. I feel like it's going to be ongoing, at least in our industry, and maintaining the type of personnel that we need to provide and do what we've been doing for years. I think that's going to change, but the supply chain is we're hoping to educate our customers that things are just taking longer to do. More people were home during the pandemic, and they seem to be because of the pandemic, there was a higher level of frustration. But I mean, if you can't get your choice of product for 4 or 6 years, and you're home and you're looking at waiting for this project to be completed, I understand that frustration from clients, but that is seemingly the norm now. Not only that, you have price increases that are huge. 4x8 sheet of plywood that was $14 not long ago I had to purchase about 80 sheets for a project, and it was like $52 just on that product alone. So, and that's probably more common across the board, different industries, but in the areas that we deal with, that was huge. So that's another, and if
Add up.
it does add up, and if it's, like in our cases when we're dealing with insurance related work, the common attitude is, well, if, I pay my deductible as long as the insurance is covering it, I'm okay. But when it exceeds what the insurance will cover, now we're talking a different ball game. Now that's how much, and that seems to happen often. But I'd say it's a combination.
Yeah, thank you. Tom, can you kind of break down this supply chain issue for us a little bit? And Wayne, maybe you want to add into that too. And are the price increases a result of the supply chain problem, or if that's coming from somewhere different?
You're asking a guy who got a C- in economics at school. So
we can shift to
I'll
Wayne.
give it my best shot. I think there's a
Okay.
couple things at play. One, there's demand. I mean, I think the economy's kind of open again, and people want stuff. They want it now. So I think there's more demand for lumber and things like that, for raw materials to build homes, redo homes, whatever. So I think that's one thing. Businesses are open, so they're ordering more stuff. I think too, like a lot of industries, the people who transport stuff also had to let go a lot of people. So they're short staffed as well. Truck drivers, people who work in ports. So they got backloaded as well. So their stuff's sitting. I think it's here. I don't think they can get it unloaded or offshored or delivered. So I think there's that. And I'm pretty sure some of those supply chain issues go overseas then too. Because I don't think there's any part of the world that didn't have the pandemic. So I think some of those issues that are happening overseas as well, factories were closed, companies were closed, they weren't producing as much material. Now they're ramping up, and so they're also in the competition then for raw materials. So I think there's a whole bunch of stuff there, but I think a lot of it just has to do with demand, a lot of it, and then not enough people to get that product moved to other people.
So it's not all about the container ship that went sideways and plugged up the canal.
Yeah, that was probably not helpful, but no, I think it's more than that.
Right, you're right. And then you throw in a couple of those events, and all of a sudden the problem is multiplied. So yeah, I believe again a big part of it is, as Tom just mentioned, demand has gone through the roof, across the board. And then also just about everything you think about, there's an aspect of labor that goes into delivering whatever the good or service is. And if companies don't have the same level of staff available to them, then naturally these supply chain issues, the delivery timeframes are extended, prices go up. We took a personal trip last week, and I'm talking about my wife and I and our family. So we took a trip last week, and literally hotels and the room rates have increased probably, you're probably 40-50% higher than where they were, say, a year ago or pre-COVID. And as we were talking about it, in the hotels where we stayed, they weren't full. So the hotels weren't at full capacity. We believe it was, they reduced the amount of rooms that they were making available due probably to staff, the staff to come in and, do the thing and clean the rooms or, change them out for the next guest. And remember, with COVID, as we're getting beyond the pandemic, there are now these additional procedures, these additional steps, these additional things that industries have to consider Darryl, certainly a good example of that. You know, there are new procedures and processes now that have also made operations or steps, you know, be a bit extended or go, you know, a bit further than perhaps they were pre-COVID. So yeah, we've got a dynamic and challenging, you know, situation that that is facing all of us, but we've seen some incredible responses to it. You know, this is where you see innovation, you know, come to life. You know, this is where you see new ideas and new strategies and new innovative products being introduced to the market when challenges like this face us. And no doubt about it, no doubt about it, the workforce issue and the demand, these things are really creating an environment where we're going to see some amazing outcomes, you know, on the other side of it.
Invention is the what is something is the mother of necessity. Necessity is the mother of invention, something like that. So Wayne, what will it take for Wichita's small business community to start to thrive again? And how is the SBA going to help?
I would just say to continue to stay engaged. You know, there are a number of services and resource partners out here that are helping. There are a number of grants and things that are in process. You know, the American Rescue Plan Act has made some other funding available, you know, to help businesses post-COVID. And so right now, this task force that I mentioned earlier, this COVID community task force, is literally doing a survey of businesses to find out what's needed, what are the priorities. Obviously, workforce and being able to hire, that's a top priority. But what are some other challenges that are facing, you know, our small businesses broadly? And so this COVID task force is attempting to identify some of those things so that as the funding is made available to the county, to the state, they want to be able to respond to those challenges and provide services needed to these small businesses.
So I'd like to wrap up the evening by sharing maybe your top tips, a tip or two with our audience. We all hear about shopping local, but can you each, maybe Wayne and Darryl, share one or two other ways that Wichitans can rally behind our small businesses?
Wow, I'd say just be aware. Anytime you call a business, there may be a level of service or expectations that you have been accustomed to that have been altered due to the pandemic. Almost have nothing to do with what that company has done or what they're capable of. Is they're being affected by ways that they never have. So whenever you contact whoever your company is that you're using, just try to be aware that they may be affected by something beyond their control because of what we've gone through. And you know, to the other companies, just stay engaged and engage with each other. There's a lot of forum groups, a lot of stuff on like Facebook and things that you know, we found that we were connecting with other companies in the same industry and some not in the same industry, and we were finding nuggets of information just on those forums, those groups, where we'd have to go to a convention in another state sometimes to get some of this information. Our like most conventions, our conventions were handled virtually, and it seemed to be so much easier to get this information faster. I didn't have to travel anywhere. I didn't have to stay in a hotel. I didn't have to book anything. I signed on and got a lot of this information, and that's something we'll definitely continue to do And I just think we, like most small business owner, Wayne's the head of SBA, but Wayne's owned a couple of businesses, so he knows the steps that I travel, and it's 1 foot in front of the other each and every day, and we all have to continue to do that. And we ask for definitely our community support to keep us keeping 1 foot in front of the other.
Thank you, Darryl. Wayne, how about you? Any last tips or ways?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Darryl touched on it. Leverage relationships. This is a time to find ways to collaborate. As business owners, and I think the business owners in our community do a great job of that. We've got excellent chambers. You've got the Wichita Regional Chamber, the Wichita Hispanic Chamber, the Heartland Black Chamber of Commerce. These are groups that are really there to help their members. There are funding opportunities that those groups are pursuing at the moment. SBA has a community navigator program that's intended to provide funding to entities like that, like those chambers. So I would say, keep fighting through it. I do think we're on the other side of it. You have to continue to stay nimble, stay flexible, certainly leverage those relationships, and be sure to stay engaged with the technical service providers like the SBA, Network Kansas, Kansas PTAC, and some of these other groups that maybe not everyone is familiar with. But if you just do a bit of research or just Google or go to our site sba.gov, we'll get you connected to some other partners that can help you as well. So I'll pause there and really appreciate the opportunity to share tonight.
Well, thank you all so much for this informative discussion. Really appreciate it. And I hope that you've enjoyed our program. This Digital Democracy on Tap conversation is sponsored by Susan and Leon Mader of Mader and Associates. I'm Sarah Jane Crespo. Thanks for joining us, and tell your friends and family that they can watch this conversation on our website, kmuw.org, under the events tab. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.